Yeah. So we're going to be having the topic, the out of the box conversation for this week is being loved for who you are. So what I want to do is just very quickly get people up to speed so everyone kind of knows what a box actually is. So what is a box? Well, a box in its simplest form is a stereotype. You put people in a box, say, oh, well, you know what Americans are like, you know what the French are like, you know what the Italians are like. But then you can also start to do that and say, well, you know what women are like. Well, you know, men, they never share their emotions or their feelings. So we end up with these very, very stereotypical views of people. But then we have other layers of boxes that go along. So we might have our nationality, our identity, the stereotypes that we have. But then there are also other boxes within boxes. So I might be English, but I'm also a man. So I have a box inside a box. And I'm also, I practiced for many years as an acupuncturist. So I'm in the health box. And I have and each of these boxes has a certain identity to it. So if you pick the health box, for example, well, what stereotypical views do we have about people that are in health? Oh, they must be kind. They must be caring. They must sacrifice. They must. So we have again these sorts of views. So I'm English. I'm a man. I'm an acupuncturist. I'm in the health box, and I'm also I'm a father. So we have all these sets of identities, and then we have other aspects about us. So, for example, I'm quite dyslexic, so my spelling and my writing and my reading is pretty atrocious. So, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm also creative and imaginative? Well, possibly not. So, what happens is we start to have all of these things start to collapse in on ourselves, and we start to end up with these kind of stereotypes. And one of the things that we start to do with the No More Boxes movement is we start to open up these boxes. We open up the identity as to who we are and start to say, okay, well, what's actually in the box? What's making up you with your perception of yourself, the reality of who you actually think you are? And are those things actually serving you? Are you having an identity that, oh, I can't do this because I am that? Or I would really like to do this, but I can't because I have this limitation. So one of the things we start to do is unpack the box and we start to see things. And one of the reasons that we unpack the boxes is we want to start to change our behavior, start to change the way we think. And we know with the group of people that we have working on the No More Boxes, that when we do this process, we can actually start to change our DNA, start to change our coding and the expression of our genes. So we actually can turn off and on genes affect our health in many, many ways. Because one of the things that boxes do is that they trap us, they hold us back, they chain us down. So I remember in my health practice, I had this particular man I was treating, and he had a digestive problem that was very, very heavily affected by his diet. As in, if he kept to the right diet, his digestive system, his guts were absolutely fine. If he went off the wrong diet, started eating the wrong things, his digestive system would start to have ulcers, it would start to bleed, it would start to decay, and it became life-threatening at a number of cases. So you'd think to yourself, well, this man is absolutely, definitely going to stick to the right diet because there's a high possibility he will die if he doesn't. And there's certainly a strong possibility he will lose part of his digestive system, and a definite fact that he will have blood coming from his bowels and he will be really ill. So he's definitely going to stick to his diet. But he didn't. He couldn't stick to his diet because his identity was that he was of a particular nationality, and this nationality, they ate spices. That's what my culture does. That's what we do. We have hot, spicy food, and we have these sorts of foods, and I love them. That's who I am. I can't not have them. What happens at family meals? I'll lose my identity. But when he ate those foods, they would cause the bleeding, the ulceration, and ultimately, potentially, his death. So some of the work that one does is to try and change that deep identity to say, look, you can still be Afro-Caribbean. You can still do this. You can still eat. You can still have that identity, but you just don't do it with food. So some of the work that we do with No More Boxes is to try and allow people's identity to be intact. The boxes that they want to have to keep, but the boxes that actually don't serve them, we actually will want to get rid of. So let's look at some of this, the big out-of-the-box conversation today about being loved for who you are. And the challenges that might arise, then we can have this discussion. So basically, we exist in our boxes. We have a certain level of perception of ourselves. And society has a perception about what's acceptable to be as a human being, how we're meant to behave. And society, or our loved ones, or the people around us, their love for us is conditional that we stay in the box. So I will love you, and I will love you for who you are, as long as you stay in the box. Could I love you if you became a mass murderer or a dictator? No, you've left. It's conditional. Well, maybe I could if you were my child, but that maybe would be difficult. But what happens with other people? So our love within our families gets to be conditional on us staying within the stereotype, the view, oh, you've changed, you aren't the same person that I married, you left the box. So there is a conditional nature to it, but it could just be our perception, our sense that this is conditional, that we believe this to be true. Because the one thing about boxes, if we believe that they are true, they become true. So we might have a conditional nature that as long as we are compliant, as long as we stay in our box, we meet that condition, we will be loved for who we are. But what happens if we break that? We leave the box. Oh my God, you're no longer that person. What's happened to you? The conditions have changed. You're no longer complying to that box. Maybe I don't love, or maybe that's just a fear that we have. So that's one thing that we look at, is what are the conditions that are being put on us? What's the box we're in? And what are we meant to comply with that says we can't leave this box because we will have broken the conditions? The other thing that goes on is that we have ourselves an internal set of boxes that we measure ourselves by. And this is about whether or not we actually love ourselves. Because it's all right being loved for who you are, but can you love yourself for who you are? Or do you have boxes that you put yourself in that you think, oh my goodness, there is a side to me that's a sinner, and there is a side to me that's a saint, and a side to me that is a sinner. And I need to be this good person, or I won't love myself. I need to, but what happens if we have all sides to us? What happens if we were just different? We're people. So we have this internal comparison of comparing what we expect of ourselves to be a saint and what we sometimes disappoint ourselves to be a sinner. But then we also are comparing ourselves to other people. Well, compared to this other person in this box, and I see them as this stereotype, I'm nowhere near as good as them. So can I be as loved as them? Because I'm not as good as them. I'm making a comparison. Whereas that's, as we know, it's a crazy thing to do. Are they a better business person than me? Are they a better father, parent, lover, whatever? What is the comparison that I'm making against people? So this is the nature of the conversation that we're looking at. Because what I want to do is I want to have this conversation. I want us to think, okay, what were the conditions that were put on you when you were a child, when you were a baby? When you were first born, conditions were put on you to be a certain way. Did it say, well, look, we're a family that are happy-go-lucky, and you seem really serious. We need to be happy-go-lucky, and you're all serious. Or maybe the family is really, really serious, and you're a joker. And can't you be more like your sister? Why can't you be serious? Why can't you just stop joking around? The conditions are put upon us at a very early age. So I want you to start thinking, what conditions were put on you at a certain age? And what conditions were put on you as you have grown up that you have to comply by to stay in that box? Because then there gets to be a fear, there gets to be a belief and a set of stories that we develop. That if I don't stay within this box, within this scenario, what will happen? Will I leave the tribe? Will I be kicked out? So it's starting to look at what conditions were put upon you when you were young, that you're still holding at some level, and what beliefs do you have about how you could be or how you couldn't be? And what are the stories that created those beliefs? What are the events in your life that allowed those beliefs to be formed? Because once we start to understand the stories and the beliefs and the conditions that we put upon us, we can then start to unpack the boxes and create this freedom, and the freedom to be loved for who you are. So we'll start the conversation now to look at the conditions that were put upon us and the stories that we told or were told and the beliefs that we have. And we'll start to unpack them and get you to be able to be loved for who you really are, not the conditions that are put upon you or the boxes. So I'm going to